without further ado, since we only have 45 minutes, I am going to jump right into it, allow these guys to introduce themselves. And so going in alphabetical order, starting with Aramark, why don't you kick things off, Brian?
Sure, thank you, Michael. Well, my name is Brian Murphy. I'm the Vice President of Data and Analytics at Aramark. I have over 30 years experience in the data and integration space. Just give you a little information around Aramark, because mostly everybody knows about or thinks about us in the sports arena, where we serve over 100 million fans annually. But we're in a majority of the Fortune 500 companies, around 90%. And we serve over 500 meals to students and universities and K-12 institutions, along with uniforming over 2 million people every day. So quite a diverse company. Been interesting working there for a long time.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. Venu, over to you.
Hi, Michael. Hello, everyone. So I'm Venu Janga. I work as the head of architecture for AstraZeneca in the integration and API services. So I was having like around 20 plus years of experience in the middleware space. So myself worked on multiple platforms in Oracle integrations and then BPM, BPL. So my expertise is on the middleware. So yeah, about AstraZeneca, we are like a biotech company. So it's a big pharma, like UK-based the company. So we are into, even I think popularly right now with the COVID vaccine. So we are working with the Oxford University. So we have a lot of data analytics needs, and again, we are early adopter for the SnapLogic. It's almost like 4+ years of journey. So I remember the conversations we had with Gaurav in the beginning. So yeah, it's almost a 4-year journey. So we're happy with the customer here.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much for that, Venu. Vishal.
Hi, this is Vishal Shah from Pitney Bowes. I've been in this data integration area for about 10 years, been with Pitney Bowes for about 20 years. Pitney Bowes, as you guys must have known, is a fulfillment and logistics company. We do a lot of fulfillment services for various Fortune 500 customers. And Pitney Bowes is a 100-year-old company. We just celebrated 100 years a couple of weeks back. And we have been user of SnapLogic for the past 5 years.
Great, great. That's super. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my slide now that all of you have introduced yourselves. So frankly, I have more room to see everyone without the distraction of the slide. Actually have a one-on-one conversation. So let's just dive into it. So this is meant to be a forum for us to engage. If you have questions out there in the attendee land, please shoot them in the Q&A. We'll get to them towards the end, but for the most part, we have a set sort of questions we're going to launch into, kicking off right now with our first one, which is just from the theme that we have today, the enterprise automation. How important or do you see automation in your respective environments? And whoever wants to go first, please go ahead, but I hope all 4 of you can jump in on this one.
So I can start. So basically automation is like every other company. For us, it's extremely important because it basically makes our business processes and operation it basically reduces the errors that are created by humans in our business processes and operation. And due to the reduction in error, we can now make use of those processes. We can reuse those processes multiple times. You can share those processes easily. And then when you do all those things, at the end, it basically increases productivity. So automation is the key component for growth in any company, at least from what I can say.
Interesting. Thanks, Vishal.
Yeah, I can jump in there. At Aramark, I think the key thing is it really helped us change the culture at Aramark. We're a hospitality company. We're not a technology company. And we're about servicing our clients and our customers and their employees. But really what it helped us do is break down the information silos and then change the culture to think about data more as an asset, where in the past it's been treated as an expense.
Oh, interesting.
And then we've been able really to do that by driving optimization through transparency and access to information, which then drives the overall automation.
Good. Great. Appreciate that, Brian. The New York Jyotsna?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jyotsna, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't introduce myself, so just a quick introduction.
Oh my goodness.
No worries. So I'm Jyotsna Sharma, and I have been in the data and analytics field for over 20 years now, in various areas of strategy, architecture, delivery, and business and analytics space. At T. Rowe Price, I'm currently heading the data architecture for global distribution and marketing, and primarily leading the digital transformation, cloud migration, and data modernization efforts. And a little bit about T. Rowe Price. We are a publicly traded global investment management firm. Been in business since 1937, and we have worldwide offices in over 16 countries with about $1 trillion in assets. So going back to the automation question, I think I mean, it's the need of the hour, especially if you look from business transformation or digital transformation perspective, right? We have the siloed information or data in multiple applications, cloud, on-prem, in our SaaS application or SaaS platforms. The ability to not just to integrate data from these data sources, but actually be able to automate business processes and have business processes, let's say in our case, events triggered in sales platform, how do they activate actually channels in our marketing platform? How do they trigger or activate marketing channels? So that is critical, and a solid underlying tool underpinning of a SaaS solution is really important.
Good, thank you. And my bad about that introduction. I tell you, that slide was really disruptive or a little bit of a disturbance. So Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon have nothing to worry about. So Venu, I believe you're next.
Yep. The one quick point Jyotsna mentioned, right? The event-based. This is becoming the trend right now, because we need to have the data as the event happens versus like event schedule is becoming outdated. So even we have in SnapLogic, right now we have a lot of schedules, maybe 1 hour schedule or two, but now the more focus to the AI analytics and the predictive analytics. I think with the fast, like we need to have the event as the event happens. I think in the keynote address also we have seen like the business process when employees joined here. I think it has to be end to end. The event has to flow. So definitely, I think the Kafka focus, and then these areas, the automation is the key.
Right.
In the business use cases, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get to streaming later on in our questions, because I know a couple of you, particularly you, Brian, have a lot to say about streaming and how you're integrating streaming into your environment and the role that plays. So sort of playing on the question about automation and how important it is within your environment, what are some of the unique challenges you would say that if I were to just focus on the Cloud iPaaS approach, what unique challenges have we been able to solve, or the fact that you're using a cloud-based iPaaS solution from a technology point of view has been able to allow you to address where perhaps you wouldn't have been able to address without the cloud integration approach? I'm just curious.
So I can jump in. I mean, versus traditional integration platforms, the iPaaS capabilities really allows us to break through all the boundaries that secure, like the normal environment or your on-prem environment, by reaching into various different technologies on the cloud, on-prem, different systems. It also allowed us to create a microservices fabric on top of our information, and also an integration capability. So that way we could expose capabilities to our development community and our partners. That way we were able to build out more of an omni-channel data services layer. And we actually joke about how we've given like tools to the geeks so they can go out and geek out and innovate and come back and deliver business value instead of just, you know, typical type of integrations.
Great, great. Jasna?
Yeah, specifically iPaaS solution one, you know, we don't really have to worry about infrastructure and all. It is, we are in the cloud migration journey right now, right? So we wanted something, an integration automation platform that is scalable, flexible, and you know, really complements our cloud architecture. And like Brian said, with the ability, you know, 500 connectors, right? Your ability to access, integrate, and automate with your online, on-prem legacy systems in reasonable time, whether it's in batch, micro batch, you know, real time or event driven. That's really a game changer for us.
Good, good. Venu or Vishal, anything more to add there?
Yeah, mainly the scalability. One point I want to add here. I think the scalability perspective, right, based on the need. So even recently for like these type of unforeseen events, like see, we have to uplift our capability on the infrastructure. So especially for the COVID use case, we added multiple cloud plexes quickly, almost like only the approvals are the key. Otherwise, immediately, like we're able to up and running in 2 days.
And I'll just add two additional things. One is basically the cost, as Jyotsna just mentioned. Since the infrastructure is not, we don't have to actually do a capital expenditure on the infrastructure itself. It's in the cloud, managed by a service, and we are paying for the service. So you are able to get your ROI right from the time you put in an investment. And the second part I would say is, again, what Brian and Jyotsna and Venu has already added is, due to its, the iPaaS platform allows you to connect your on-prem data to the cloud with a unique integration pattern, which can then be utilized to connect various kinds of data sources, which normally would not have been possible to do it without manual intervention. So those are a couple of things I would like to add.
Yeah.
Great, Vishal. Yeah, let me dive into some targeted questions. I'm really eager to hear your use case, Brian. I know, for example, you are implementing automation. So why don't you describe the specific business and organizational benefits that you've been able to realize? Share it with the audience here.
Sure. I think, I mean, to be honest with you, we've been innovating across all our various businesses within inside Aramark. I mean, a lot of them are really around, on the keynote, they talked about, you know, the number of applications and the ability to provide, you know, integration and, you know, eliminating, you know, those information silos. But probably the most interesting to everybody is really around what we've been doing around COVID. So, you know, as everything's been shutting, as the world was shutting down, we were able to quickly spin up what we called Marco Maps, which allowed us to actually visualize our locations and the locations that were closing to our operators that were still operational. So that way we were able to divert resources and material to the open locations, because as we know, there was a lot of supply chain issues.
Right.
With that too, in our facilities business, we've recently started an IoT initiative where we're putting sensors in our client facilities, in the conference rooms, the restrooms, and the hallways, where now we're streaming that data into our environment, sending out real-time alerts and notifications and analyzing it. So in the past, we would just create cleaning schedules and just go clean every room based on that schedule. Now we're able to create optimized labor schedules, and we're going to locations that are being used, because there's a lot of facilities that aren't fully occupied, but you still want to make sure they're sanitized and being used. And then we also were able to stand up a whole program around, we called it EverSafe, which is really a solution that helps our clients and even outside of our client network with the ability to provide guidance and cleaning and training and procedures and then checklists on how to safely open up the business. And we've been able to do that leveraging the Snap and the microservices architecture to make that information available easily. And it provided us a lot of agility, because as we all know, this came upon us very quickly. We all had to work remotely. So remote teams doing all that, the ability and the flexibility and the scale that we were able to do in a very short period of time was extremely helpful.
That's good. Oh, I'll tell you, being a sports fan and going to a sports stadium, I'm a big fan of those sensors in the bathrooms to, as you say, send notice to sanitation teams, us guys. So anyhow, let's see, Vishal or Venu, anything more?
So for us, unlike everyone who has been affected badly because of COVID, Pitney Bowes as a business has actually got pretty good business. I'm not saying because of COVID, but because of COVID, everyone started buying online. And since we are in the fulfillment and logistics business, we had a huge volume that went up. And due to that, we really needed to know where our parcels or packages are at any given point of time. And that's where we introduced these, Brian suggested sensors. We started adding different data sources, even from a transportation company, which basically says, okay, the parcel is on the truck at this place using the GPS location. So now we can know that the parcel is actually left the facility. It is en route to this place, and by what time would it reach this facility? And then we also were able to curate the data, which will basically tell us, okay, based on those volumes, how much should be the labor force that should be allocated to that facility, so that they can accordingly manage that volume, because not all volume will go to one facility, and we want to make sure we have enough resources to manage that. So we have used the SnapLogic tool to get kinds of data which we would normally not get it, in a normal scenario. But because of this extraordinary times and having this high volume and additional, it gave us an additional benefit of we now getting access to other sets of data.
That's great. Great, Vishal. Anything more than you from an AstraZeneca perspective? I have to believe you have an amazing story from a COVID perspective.
Anything you're allowed to tell us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have definitely not the similar like these use cases, but it's we are using for extracting the data from all the vendors. The clinic, we outsource a lot of studies into different clinics and different hospitals and across the globe. So we collect the data using different protocols, like some unstructured data through files. So SnapLogic, we are pulling all the way up to 50 GB of files and then pushing into some analytical platforms, like especially for the scientists to analyze these data. So we are using SnapLogic for that use case. Yep. And
there's a lot of pressure in your environment. I mean, I think many of us can't just begin to appreciate the level of pressure there. So if you don't mind, a quick follow-up question on that note, do you find that you're able to respond to those pressures?
Yeah. So
from
what we did is like, see, even we predicted in the beginning, like before even this is third phase kind of, but what we did is like we bumped up all the infrastructure, like we added the 2 cloudplexes in Europe, and then one in EMEA, and then we added a couple of nodes in the groundplex. We spin off like in less than a week. So yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the ongoing, like so every day we have around 100 plus vendors pumping the data on a regular basis. So yeah, this is the unstructured data, like it's a lot of files, and it's we're not using any streaming type, but yeah, we read from SFTPs and then the different type.
Okay. So, and presumably these vendors are all part of the process of creating the drugs, or in this case, vaccination that
Yeah,
you're.
the data that comes from the clinics, that comes from the hospitals, and then these are all third-party providers and investigators, kind of. Yeah, the data.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Great. Give me a moment. I have some questions coming in via chat. I want to be able to get to them. They're not flashing up. So if anyone from the team is monitoring that, just let me know. Okay, I got to it now. Okay, I see a few questions coming in. We'll get to those questions a little later. But let's go to the next question we wanted to run through from a panel perspective. I know, Josnya, you really have a really interesting architecture at T. Rowe Price. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So in terms of architecture, I think very typical of any industry. So we have legacy systems, on-prem databases. We have SaaS solutions, CRM system, a marketing system, workforce management system. And then we are currently, like I said, undergoing cloud transition. So a lot of our new applications are being built on cloud. We have our data platform, our data warehouses, again, SaaS platform, Snowflake. Data Lake is on cloud, and then Workforce. So just like any industry, lot of systems, lot of integrations. So we have been using a lot of integration tools, native AWS codes, Snowpipe, Glue, IICS, and other custom codes. But what SnapLogic helped us was kind of streamline and centralize that, and make that connections between all these on-prem, online, on-prem, on-cloud SaaS solutions very easy. And I think one of the critical things, like besides all these connectors that help you, bring in data from different areas, the other aspect of it is the schema on read, like ingesting the ability to ingest data in its native format. Break down your ETL pipelines if something changes in the source system. So those have been key features that we have.
So since you mentioned it, the schema on read, and presumably that implies you may be working with a lot of JSON data. Are you able to handle schema changes as they may occur from the source side as you put it into the data warehouse? Is that handled by SnapLogic? I'm curious how that is being managed. Yeah,
so the feature of SnapLogic, the ELT feature, right? You don't transform the data. You're able to read the data as it is coming from the source systems in the native format, whether it is JSON, XML, Avro, whatever you name it. So that is very critical, right? So how many times have we been in situations where our ETL loads fail because something changed
Exactly.
in the source system. So with this feature, we are able to keep data pipelines going. And I feel like with our use case, where we have to integrate, sales platform with marketing platform, basically, sales activating something in marketing, right? So if the data pipeline is failing, then you're not able to activate those channels within your marketing platform. And ours is a customer-centric use case, like providing more personalized experience to our customers and activating services, interactions, and actions in real time. So it's critical the data pipelines don't
Great.
fail.
Now, Vishal, I know you want to talk about your implementation as well, but I'm going to get you to hold for just a moment. I got a question that came in specific to Aramart, and the question was related to streaming, and this person wanted to get a sense for how easy was it to manage streaming through SnapLogic. I know Craig, in his discussion about the modern architecture, streaming event data is increasingly more prevalent. So I imagine you're dealing with that firsthand. So how's that going from a ease of use perspective or effectiveness perspective?
Yeah, so when we talk about data streams, we're actually in Azure. So we're leveraging Azure's Event Hub capability. So we're able to ingest those data streams very easily. I think where we connect SnapLogic into the equation is as a consumer. So one of the reasons why we liked Event Hub was it was a platform as a service or software as a service. And then we were able to expose that data as a Kafka endpoint. So then we were able to leverage Kafka, the Kafka Snap from SnapLogic, and then set that up as a consumer. So then we could do real-time notifications, alerts, or persistence from like a hot path perspective. But from a cold path, where we're streaming the data off for analytics, we're pushing it into our data lake, and then loading that into our cloud data warehouse, which is Snowflake. I think most everybody on this, all the panelists are Snowflake customers, at least the ones that I know. And starting to stream that data into our cloud data warehouse so we can do not real-time analytics, but analytics that is near real-time. So, to me, when you talk to a business user, they always talk about real-time. And what does that really mean? Alerts, activities, things that drive action or real-time, consumer interactions. Yes, you want to make that as real-time as much as possible. Stream analytics, where you're looking for anomalies, you want to hook that into your pipeline. But as you start to talk to analysts and they're starting to do analysis and do real-time, like dynamic scheduling, that doesn't have to be real time. That could be every 15 minutes or every 5 minutes. And then it's an adaptive learning model that will actually generate those dynamic schedules.
Great, thanks, Brian. And just for the record, I mean, I've said in my bio, I'm a former Snowflake person, was with them for nearly 2 years. Well, I'm sure they're happy to hear that. I know there is another person on our panel who is not Snowflake, and I wonder if he wants to say anything about that, because we are an agnostic platform. We ingest data into multiple data warehouses. So, Venu, would you like to specifically talk about the data warehouse that you pull data into?
Yeah, we have a data warehouse, Amazon Redshift, like for planning and resource information. Basically, we push a lot of data into the Redshift platform.
Redshift. So there you go. Right, Redshift. And we, for the record, also have customers that are on BigQuery. And you see through Brian's explanation how we integrate with Azure. So being agnostic and having a cloud integration platform that sits outside of your classic vertically integrated data warehouse, it provides numerous advantages. So Vishal, you wanted to talk more about the architecture at Pitney Bowes. What do you have to share with us there?
Sure. As I've in 2015, Pitney Bowes did their digital transformation journey, and at that time, Pitney Bowes had a lot of enterprise applications that that people were using it, but everybody who were using it, they were either using it from their own desktop, connecting through a console, or they were connecting to a SQL database and giving a query, or they were connecting through a program. Somebody has written a Java program or a .NET program connecting to the database. So everyone was basically doing on their own, getting the data from these source databases, enterprise databases, and then performing aggregations in Excel. A lot of people are creating pivot tables in Excel and everything. So when we did this digital transformation journey, our first goal was to basically get all of this data centralized in a place where everyone has access to it. So instead of each people going to each of the individual systems, we wanted to make it available at a central place. And that's where SnapLogic played a major role, where SnapLogic did the integration with all of these systems to bring the data into a central data lake for broader consumptions. And once we brought the data into data lake, then the next immediate question came is, okay, can we merge these two data together? Can we merge these three data together? So then that's where the transformation of the data came into being, and we at SnapLogic do a portion of that transformation and put that transformed data into Snowflake, and that made the usage of that data more appropriate in terms of we could now immediately turn out results with our dashboards or reports indicating at what's happening real time. So our architecture more is towards using SnapLogic as a tool which will integrate to all the different kinds of sources, enterprise as well as SaaS, and then curating the data also within SnapLogic so that the end user does not have to do any of these steps. And plus doing this in a way where it is repeatable, it is automated, and it is fully, fully verified through a proper quality control check, so that when we share data, that data is basically fully ready to be used. So that
Great.
was our basic use case initially when we started. Since then, we have gone in a lot of other things. We have also now implemented Kafka. In the last quarter, we implemented the Kafka for the same thing, as I said, because of COVID, because the volume went in. So now we expose the transportation information that comes through a Kafka topic. We now get it real time. So that's how we can get that data, push into our data lake and push into our warehouse. So now we can get real time updates on where that particular parts or packages. It comes through the Kafka topic.
Well, that's very modern approach to things. And in fact, we got a question, and that's directed to you, Vishal, from Cole, who wanted to know, and you partly answered it just now, but I'll ask the question anyway. For you at Pitney Bowes, what were the reasons why you chose to land your data in the data lake instead of directly into Snowflake, and what have been the benefits?
Yeah, this question I've answered 4 times today, so just imagine everybody wants to know why. So the reason why we landed it into data lake initially, as I told you, that one was we wanted to centralize all our data into one place. All right, we did not have Snowflake initially. We were putting everything in the data lake, and then we were connecting through Redshift Spectrum to connect to the data, and people can query on it. But soon we realized that all this data which is getting collected, it was not possible to do complex query on the data, because every time you're searching inside the files. So we needed a way to basically create a curated layer. So that's what we did with our big data implementation, which took our data and curated it, and then put that curated data into Snowflake. Now, the other main reason of putting it into S3 was Snowflake was managed by Snowflake themselves. God forbid tomorrow Snowflake database crashes or something happens to that database, and we have to recreate it. We have all the data available in S3 to recreate it. So it was kind of and we could put it in long-term storage. So Amazon provided regular S3 and greater storage. So we could put that data into long-term storage. So we could store more data available to us than what we would put in a data warehouse or even in our source systems. So that
Understood.
was our basic feature.
Thank you.
It's also more cost effective too to land it before you load it into Snowflake too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And why you say that? Because obviously coming from that environment, I'm aware that they basically mirror the storage costs on S3. So if you store it in or out of Snowflake, it should be relatively the same on a storage cost basis. So what's driving that?
Well, among a lot of things, one of the reasons why we are moving to Snowflake was the ability to separate compute and storage.
That's correct.
And this way you're able to optimize your compute. And so we may be paying twice for storage because we're landing it into the lake and then we're loading it into Snowflake. But this way we're able to optimize the warehouses that are loading the data using Snowpipe into the warehouse. And instead of just doing direct connections and then just doing typical ETL into a Snowflake warehouse, that's just not an efficient way of doing that. You have warehouses that are spun up the whole time and you're paying a premium for those warehouses versus when events are triggered based on when data is being landed, they'll kick off, depending on how you've implemented it. So we're in Azure. So we're using the Azure event-based ecosystem where as files are being landed, they're firing off events, Snowflake subscribing to that, saying, hey, process data, bring it in, there you go, and then you just move on.
Yeah,
we do the same thing in Amazon S3. Like we use the same SNS topic of Amazon S3, which pushes the data into Snowflake real time. But I think the one other use case I forgot to tell is basically all this data which is there in a data lake are also used by our data science models. So there, not everything goes into Snowflake. Snowflake has only business-specific data. So all the raw data will still remain in an Amazon S3 data lake. So if somebody wants to basically do some trending analysis or some simulation models, then they would need all the data from going backward, historical. So that's where the data lake usage will come in.
Great, got it. And Brian, I just want to make sure I heard correctly. Did you say the cost of storage is less or more if you went into Snowflake directly? Because I heard you say if you go into outside of Snowflake,
No, I'm paying for it's cheaper in Snowflake than Azure. But they'll tell you that.
Okay.
But it's much less expensive than the sand space that I'm using
Right on.
on-prem.
Okay.
To me, it gives me the flexibility, and then just then you also have the data lake for spinning up more machine learning. You can also be talking about Databricks. So that way you do have the data scientists that can actually leverage some real machine learning algorithms.
Yep.
And they don't always have to connect to a database to actually get that information.
Right, that's good for exploration. And so, I get that. And thanks for elaborating. Just in case someone heard the same thing I heard, I wanted to make sure it was straight for the record. We're getting down to the last few minutes. This has been a great conversation. Let's see, I have another questions coming in, but let's move to the next thing. I mean, audiences love best practices and tips. And so what would be something each of you would impart in terms of best practices? So Venu, why don't you go first this time?
Yeah, this is a citizen type of integrator, and then ease of use comes with the price, obviously, like we don't use it properly. So I think we need to keep guardrails in the beginning, like with the Center for Enablement type. And then you need to have like best practices and do's and don'ts. Otherwise, so we ending up like in the beginning, right? We had these challenges, like so too many pipelines, and then the development also done by different vendors and then different groups. So I think in a non-standard way, I think it caused a lot of disruption in the beginning. So, but we realized, and then
Good, Vishal.
Yeah, so I'll give two of them of the best practice that I feel that which will make your implementation successful. One of them is security compliance. So you need to understand the security compliance that is available with the platform, because and we have seen it the hard way, if the platform does not adhere to all of your security protocols that your security team is managing, come implementation time, you are now seeing a major delay because of security. And of course, not to blame the security team. That's their job. You have to be environment has to be secure to ensure that everything, all the compliances are met. So if you do that prep work prior to even doing any implementation, make sure that all the product or the platform that you're selecting is meeting all your security compliances. Then that will be less time spent at the end. The other piece which I would like to add is basically also identifying the use case and the audience that you are basically going to cater to for this particular implementation. So a lot of times, because SnapLogic is very easy, you say, let's do this, let's do that. But then if you're not able to justify what is the output coming out of it and what is the ROI against it, then all the time that you have spent will not be used. Because if you create something but no one is using it, then you have already spent money buying the tool, buying the platform. You already spent money developing it, but no one is using it because we don't want to use this. We want to do something different. So that's why identifying that piece. I'm a big proponent of ROI, specifically in the cloud area. Like ROI and security are two main pieces that we take into consideration.
Got it. Just now?
Yeah, just to add to what Vishal and Venu said, I would recommend, and we having been using SnapLogic for less than a year, I think my advice would be to start small, start simple, don't overcomplicate, over-engineer, and or over-architect. Adoption, in order to, whenever you introduce new tools, there is a little bit of resistance in adoption. So I think it's very important to have some, and SnapLogic is very collaborative about this, creating sandbox environments so users can get the feel of the tool. And have tech talks, lunch and learns, just to get that learning going, and I think the adoption becomes very easy after that. And one thing I would like to add, besides everything what Vishal and Venu said, to kind of invest earlier on in automation of testing. Once you have your quarterly upgrades and batches applied. If you don't plan for that, then once you get to the tipping point where you have hundreds of production implementations, it becomes a little bit of challenge. So kind of focus on
sounds great.
Brian,
I'm gonna give you a minute to answer the same, if you don't mind the pressure. And then I want to give Jasna the opportunity for the last question. She had one she especially wanted to answer. So in terms of best practices, Brian, what are some key bullets you would love to share with the team?
Key things I'm going to stress: keep it simple. Follow the KISS methodology. Don't overcomplicate. I've seen some things that are crazy. Embrace or adopt a culture that's not afraid to fail. So that really drives innovation and great ideas, even though they may not go into production, because this is a new technology or it's a new capability that you're implementing. And then one of the things that we did, which really drove adoption and got people excited, is we partnered with our other vendors like Twilio, and we held a hackathon. So basically, and it was a cross-functional hackathon. It just wasn't a bunch of technical geeks. We actually had people in the business out in the field come in, and we had a day hackathon. Actually, we held Twilio's largest hackathon, and we had our C-level executives actually judge the event, where our CEO gave out an award at the end of it. So it was great.
Nice. Great for sharing that tip. I haven't heard that one before. That was really, really good. So Jasna, for you here's one that you can close us out with, right? So as it relates to either enterprise automation or integration in general, if there is something that you know now that you didn't know before, what would it be that perhaps could help someone in their endeavors?
You had the hardest question for me. I was like catching my head. Okay, what would I do differently? I wouldn't do anything differently, but I sure would have loved to start sooner, right? But you honestly, you do have to go through the checklist of, evaluation and the whole thing, the platform hardening and, with your security ecosystem. So that took some time upfront. And, hindsight, we could say, well, do we really have to do that? But yes, you have to do those things. But as I said,
Right.
We would have loved to
So
start
that's
sooner.
great. All right, everyone. We actually went 4 minutes over time. Dale's going to pull me off stage. I can see it. But I really want to thank you all for your time. This has been very engaging. So Brian, Jyotsna, Vishal, Venu, thank you so much for your time and imparting your knowledge. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.